Everyone. So Saya's kit is out and it's exciting, but whoo, that's a word soup. Okay, so let's kind of take this back. Let's look at her stats. So her stat line kind of is everything's like all around each other, which kind of screams chorus. But her kit kind of shows that she can become more of a warden. They might say she's a warden, but she's kind of a chorus at low investment, and she becomes more of a warden at high investment. One of these choose your own adventure of how you want to build her type, which is what they've kind of been doing for a lot of the last units. So I do like that direction. Then the other part is that you can see what she does. So she has Sigil Yield and Realm Mastery is more than likely her too. These two here, I think, are just a mistake because there's no death resistance at all in her kit, but there is Sigil Yield and Realm Mastery. So I think those are her two main stats. Let's go back here. On to her kit. All right. So the first part here is what is the alt realm, which we're calling P Caro. So P Caro is basically the exact same thing as S Ultra, except P Caro buffs your exalts. So S Ultra buffs the cards of your units, and P Caro, so Seiya, P Caro buffs the exalts of your units. That's kind of all you really need to get into all of this, and I'll come back up to it. But let's go look at her kit, and let's talk about her lines first. So her line, this first one, we're just going to look mostly at the shield part. So you get E1 if you want her to be more of a warden and make a bigger shield. She also does more for corrosion there, but her biggest part here is again going to be about her shield generation. So you get E1 if you want to make her more of a warden. You get E2 if you want to make her more of an Elmas battery. So together her kit really is these two things. She is a corrosion unit and a shielder and that was actually three things, and a Elmas battery. Okay, so just think about where you would put her is where you want a corrosion unit with an Elmas battery. That's her best spot. And the bonus is she gives you shield. Okay, so this is part of the Elmas battery of her, which what it does is that you use her basic strike and basic defense to help get her to get Elmas faster. And then it allows you to exalt her, which allows you to exalt other people faster. And this is what they're kind of doing with their kit is that you use strikes and defenses of her and other units in order to get them to gain Elmas battery. But the problem is that also is still giving you Arithmetica Harmony. So you can run into an issue where you have you're playing 6 or 8 strikes and defenses, but now you've hit a cap of already 8 Elmas or 8 key harmonies. So you kind of have to watch what you're doing a little bit. That's kind of one of the little side costs of her kit. The next one, so E1 is shield, E2 is Elmas battery, and E3 is now more corrosion. Okay, so that's kind of what those distill down to. Her over exalt, her OE, all copied skills take effect one additional time is kind of cool, but we have to see in practice how much we use this. So there is an advanced way that you can use this, but I'll go into it, but I just don't know how practical it is. As much as we can theory craft it, if it doesn't actually, if it's kind of clunky when you play it, you might not like it. And then her AA is that her cognitive alteration is enhanced. After using Crimson Furnace, Seiya gains 50 Ailments and 1 stack of her special stack. Okay, let's go on to, let's talk a little bit more about her Elmas battery part, because some people were confused with this. So she gains strike and defense of her own, which generate a little bit more embryo fusion, which helps you to get an embryo. And the embryo fusion of the alt realm still probably will give us Elmas. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But then when you exalt her, you get 2 copies of strike or defense. Oh, so it's not 4 copies. It's 2 of or strike or defense. We're going to make them 0 and make them take effect basically twice. So what that means is that I get my damage dealer, not Seiya. I get 2 copies, one of their strike or one of their defense. I can play them. They take effect one more time, which means I'm just going to get so much more Elmas, which means I can exalt them faster. That's how she's the Elmas battery when you devour. So you have to devour to do it. The other part of her kit is that you choose an Awakener and you generate a basic copy of each of their basic command cards with fleeting and destroy. So fleeting means that at the end of turn, if it's in your hand, it gets removed from your deck. But the destroy thing, they added a new affix with destroy. It says remains in the battle after the battle ends, but will be permanently removed when played or consumed. So the interesting part here is if you don't have, if you get, like if you draw those cards, but you don't have them in your hand at the end of turn, you get to keep them for the next battle. And that's actually what her 0 card is all about. This is the little advanced play I was talking about, is that you exalt her, you get more cards of a certain unit. A lot of people are looking at Mouchette is like one that they might use her in, even though I think that's kind of overkill with Mouchette. But anyway, you can get more of Mouchette's cards. And then when you draw those Mouchette cards, if you don't need them for that battle, you play the 0 cost and you discard all those command cards. You get rid of all of Mouchette's cards and you put them back into your deck. And then that means in a future battle, you have the ability to pull up all those cards. That's kind of one of the advanced tech plays here. However, the other reason you're playing the 0 cost card is this is where you inflict most of her corrosion. I don't believe you do any corrosion when you exalt her, right? Generate a basic copy. No. So this is where her corrosion is her 0 cost. However, it comes at a cost, a health cost of you lose 10% of your HP. If you want to know what that feels like, that's like playing 5 of Arachne's 0 cost cards. Okay, so but you inflict, look at this, at level 60, you inflict 11k corrosion on all enemies, and that's at Soul Forge 0. That's really awesome. So that means you're going to be able to inflict tons of corrosion. That's why I was saying she's a corrosion unit who does Ailmus Battery. That's her big thing. Now, her biggest Ailmus Battery is actually her Rouse. So when you rouse her, you grant Perception Warp to command cards of all other Awakeners in hand. So her cards are actually, you can still read them, but now every other one has Dissolution Ink basically on them. And when you play that card, Seiya and the Awakener who owns that card each gain 20 Ailmus. So it's similar to like Thysis 2 cost, right? You play Thysis card and they both gain Ailmus. Well, this is the same thing, but it's the other way around where you play their card, the unit's card, and Seiya and that unit gain 20 Ailmus. So the best spot to use this Perception Warp is probably a poison-based team, which we'll get back to in a bit. But this is where, because poison-based teams want to exalt a lot, and this is how you're going to do it, because you're going to ramp up, you're going to rouse Seiya right away, and then you're going to ramp up all of your units so they all gain all this Ailmus, and then you can like basically exalt them all like turn 2 or 3. That's the ideal play with the poison team. Okay, so that's what you're kind of using this part for of her stuff. Now what we're going to go look at is a little bit of the alt caro, or P caro as we're calling it, and some of the negative sides of it. So one of the first parts that we're all a little unsure about is this part here, this Crimson Furnace. So what this says is that the audio accumulation at the start of the turn changes to 10% of HP lost, up to 50% of maximum HP. No longer accumulates at the end of battle. Okay, and 3 turns cooldown upon use. That's another little part. Okay, so this is one of our problems is that, so my teams, I can generate 150 Crimson Furnace at the start of a turn. So that means turn 1, I start it, I get 140 Crimson Furnace as like a buffer to help protect me. This one, I start turn 1, I get no Crimson Furnace. I only get it when I lose life. Now, if I lost 1,000 life because I take a big hit, I'm only going to get next turn 100 Crimson Furnace. Okay, so that's one where we're all like, this is a nerf. That's like almost 50% less Crimson Furnace. So we're not really loving her in pure Caro teams. We actually think she's going to be the best in Mixed Realm. And that also comes up to Embryo Fusion, because Embryo Fusion used to be 100 and now Embryo Fusion is 200. So all of the teams that rely on embryos, we're really questioning if she will generate enough. We don't know. We're going to have to test it out. But one of her best DPSs that we think in Caro is going to be Sorrel. But the problem with Sorrel, because of all this stuff like is awesome for Sorrel. Like you do final damage, you do strength generation, and you do HP recovery with Sorrel. Like this is amazing for her. But the problem is Sorrel likes to eat a lot of embryos and you might not generate a lot. So we're kind of like, we don't know if she's going to generate a lot. We're going to have to test. We actually think her best realm is going to be blue and red mixed. So that's a little foreshadowing there for you, but I'll get into that in a bit. Okay. Now, the other part that's a little confusing is that they use 3 different keywords here. So they say the embryos, okay? Playing this card no longer grants crit rate. Okay, so that's how I played an embryo before, and devour no longer grants shield and temporary strength. So those are 2 keywords, playing and devour. Then they go to the first time each awakener consumes an embryo. 3 different keywords. I'm going to assume at this point that consumes means that it's either or playing or devouring, because it says the first time each awakener consumes an embryo. So I can either play it on a unit, so that's like a non-care unit, or I can consume it. They gain 40 stacks of this thing, which then, following the effect, they do all this stuff, which is the same as S Ultra, okay? But this is where I either play it on the person, so the trigger for this is I play it on my unit, or I consume it, and then I get all this buff. The nice part too with this is that the way that this realm works is that it charges. So turn 1, everybody starts with 20 stacks of propagation frenzy. And then at the start of a turn, and then realm mastery, it says like, I think it was like on all awakeners gain 20 stacks at the start of each turn. So there we go. So at the start of turn 1, you have 20 stacks. Turn 2, you have 40 stacks. Turn 3, you have 60 stacks, and it keeps going up. And then once you use it on one awakener, so if I use it on, let's say, Sorrel, right? Then my other awakener, so Saya, so I used up all Sorrel stacks, but Saya still has her own stacks. That's how I'm reading this will work. So like each one builds up their own. And then the actual embryo itself adds another 40 stacks to that each unit. Okay, but it's only the first one that they consume. So that means Sorrel consuming like 8 doesn't allow her to gain 8 times 40, so 320 stacks. She's not going to gain that. She's only going to gain 40 stacks, all right? So that's part of that. The other part that's a little interesting here is that Crimson Corrosion. So when you use Crimson Furnace, it inflicts corrosion on all enemies. And the more Crimson Furnace consumed, the stronger the corrosion effect, up to 100%. Deal 5 times corrosion effect against empty shell enemies. So this is kind of a little interesting, because what this is saying is I want to consume Crimson Furnace on a burst turn where I want to do a lot of damage. Now, what's been nice recently is that the design of enemies has been that they put heavily amount of bleed on you, and then the next turn they're not attacking you. So this allows you to, like, in between those turns for you, right? So that's the enemy's turn, they put bleed on you. Your turn, you can use Crimson Furnace, remove the bleed, and you also have a big attack turn because the enemy is not attacking you, as long as it stays that way. But if it doesn't stay that way, one of the problems with this is because it has this 3-turn cooldown, is if an enemy puts bleed on you every turn, you don't have the ability like you used to with old Crimson Furnace, that you could use it every turn. You have to wait 3 turns. So you have to choose which turn you're going to actually remove that bleed. This is kind of one of the negative sides. However, one of the parts that's a positive side is that you get more max HP. You get 10% more. And team damage amplification plus 50%. So again, the team damage amplification kind of screams, again, you want to have a poison or a counter team. And like, okay, so there's not like too much that's kind of there, but we'll get into that in a little bit. And then we want to look at her wheel. So with her wheel, it's the very first wheel that the Arithmetica limit +1. So all of the other Annie units, if you don't know, they were the units that have their wheels say you get +2 hand card or card size of your hand, okay? So that's what Towel, right? Thice, we have G Murphy, and we have Caster, all have that type of wheel. Well, now we were expecting that to happen for her wheel, but now they've shifted to the new Annie units are more than likely going to have this Arithmetica limit, which is pretty cool. And she does Sigil. But the other part that's kind of nice with her is for every 10 base ailments the wielder has, they inflict corrosion. So this is a wheel that can actually go on Caster, which is kind of awesome. And then when it goes on Caster, he also becomes Baby Maker. So we can Empreg caster with giving him this wheel. And I wonder if he would spawn off Pollux. That's a little stuff there. Anyway, we can Empreg caster by giving him this wheel. All right. So if that's your dream, you can do it. Okay, now we're going to go look at the sample teams. The very first team, I'm actually showing two teams in one here, is going to be a Sorrel or a Sangha team. So a Sorrel team with Seiya. When Seiya is on the team, right, all of their exalts do more damage, or all of their exalts get all those crazy buffs. So Sorrel is an exalt base unit. She's going to, let's look at her exalt. Okay, so her exalt is that this Carousel of Ambition deals 3 times instances of damage and HP recovery plus 14. So she's gaining health. She's doing damage. When you rouse her, she also gains strength. And other Awakener's temporary final damage plus 1. So she's going to be increasing the final damage. Okay, the temporary final damage increase takes effect up to 15 times per turn. So she's going to be increasing strength, she's going to be healing, and she's going to be increasing final damage, all of a part of what the P Caro does. So this is why we're like, Sorrel is probably one of her top DPSs for Caro. And the other one that people have been thinking about is actually Sangha. So we're going to go look at Sangha. And hers is, we're not only gaining shield, but we do damage to all enemies. And we increase the point for each shield. This is going to be, again, something that P Caro is going to buff. Okay, so that's her exalt. Now we're going to look at why did I put Pharos into all of this stuff. Okay, so there's a few reasons why. The first one is her exalt gains shield. That's also going to get buffed with P Caro. But more importantly with Sorrel is that within this turn, you play this 1 cost before you exalt Sorrel. So within this turn, after causing tentacle damage, put 14 stacks of poison are applied to enemies. Sorrel basically has like 100 slaps of tentacles when you exalt her with lots of embryos. So this is going to be awesome for her. Okay. And then the other part is that you can, when you exalt Pharos, you get to choose up to 3 cards from the draw pile and add them to your hand. So if you remember, Seiya is a person who adds all these extra cards, but you have to go get them out of your draw pile. You have to go get them out of your deck, right? Well, she's a tutor. So you just put all these cards in from Seiya, and then you can go tutor them, which means you can also go tutor like Sorrel's 2 cost, which is her Elegance of Rose, to do more damage after she exalts. You can go tutor cards for Sangha to help her gain more shield, and then you can exalt her to do more damage. So there's like lots of synergies that are back and forth. Now with this team, you can also flip it. If you wanted it to be more Sorrel focused, you could remove Sangha and you could put in like Pikmin, or you can remove Pharos, and I use G Murphy on my team. So you're going to have G Murphy there. But if you want to make it more Sangha focused, you can have, again, Seiya, Sangha, and then people were looking at having Miriam and what's his name? Salvador. Okay, so this is one team that can fragment into 2 if you want, but that would also mean that you're going to invest heavily in Sangha or heavily in Sorrel. Now, here's a second note. Seiya actually allows you to play Sorrel without having to over-invest in her like I did. She's plus 12 for me, okay? But you could actually play Sorrel at probably like E3, reasonable level investment with Seiya. That's super cool. My Sorrel at plus 12 is going to like be God mode. But at like a lower investment, she allows you because she buffs so many things of Sorrels. So that's pretty cool. The next team that people were looking at is that, hey, wait a minute, Seiya has a discard mechanic, so let's put her in discard, which probably is going to work. Now, the main benefit here is that we were looking at the nerfs to Crimson Furnace for a pure Caro team. So this is one of the things that I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to love her in here with Sorrel, because it might be a nerf to Crimson Furnace and it might be a nerf to Embryo Generation. But in this team, okay, I'm actually going to flip this. They should all get Cocoon. They should all get this. This is now one of the top. So what is this actually called? Cocoon of the Main. So they should all get Cocoon. And they all have high crit rate, because look at what this does. The wielder gains 8% temporary crit damage for each tentacle after consuming an embryo for the first time. Oh, she doesn't consume an embryo, so she doesn't. Okay, never mind. She should still have then this, I call it crit build. So we'll leave that alone. But the team here, again, discard. What I didn't like about discard is there was no health. I hated playing it because I'm like, unless I like play it really well and I avoid getting damage, I can't heal back. Like even just a little bit after, a longer battle hurts me. However, now Seiya is perfect for this because she has a discard mechanic built in with her zero cost. She's going to put a lot of corrosion on everybody when you play her zero cost, which means that Arita, when she exalts, which again, we're hoping that Arita's exalt, this is one of the ones that we're questioning because it says consume up to 10 Gland Division cards from the draw pile and discard pile, each causing an additional 10 instances of damages. So because it's like kind of card based, we know it's an exalt, but it's kind of card based. We don't know if it's going to work well, but we think it's going to work. So we have to test it just because all these ones that like say we're going to do stuff with cards or like, does it actually affect it? But I think it does. So we're going to find out. So anyway, the part that happens here is that you gain health with discard finally. This is awesome. So this is like, look, these are two blue and red teams. Blue and red teams. Guess what the third one is? Oh, it's actually not that. Well, let's go back. Let's do it. The third one is another blue and red team. So I'm going to be using this here because I don't care about building up Vortis. I'm using Vortis as a support mode so that Dorison can actually do something. If I put Seiya here, what happens is double posse effect. Double posse of Vortis's posse. Awesome. Okay. And then Vortis's exalt does more damage, but I don't have her built up. But Dorison's exalt does more damage, and Dorison can have Cocoon on him. So now the problem with Dorison is that his crit rate is so abysmal. However, Cocoon solves that with tentacles too. So not only that, we get like the tentacle crit rate buff. Actually, we don't because it's divine Aqueer here. So it's Diaqua. We actually don't get that awesome buff, but we still get like a lot more buff for Dorison here. Also, he gets corrosion to help him kill. Thank God, because he's so weak. So he gets help. We also get Vortis to help him kill other units. So what's awesome is this posse targets the unit with the most health. So against the mobs, if you drop down one unit's health low, and when it happens a second time, you drop a different unit down. And now when you exalt Dorison or use a zero cost, it keeps going. This is awesome. This is where I'm going to be using her, actually. This is my team that I'm prepping for her, and I'm actually going to put in, once I get Arita's real plus 12, it's going to go here because it generates a lot of strength per turn with Dorison. So I'm going to do that. Anyway, this is my team. The last one that you can do is a poison team. So we have Seiya over here, and if you're in Ultra, a good one to have is Liz and Erica, obviously, for your poison. If you are in Aqueer, the one to have is Arita and Pharos for your poison. And then if you are in Chaos, you have Nymphea and Lily for your poison. So it's all the same way. And this was the one that I was saying again, is that you're going to rouse Seiya so that all of these units can exalt a lot, right? Because we want Shu to exalt a lot. We want Liz to exalt a lot. We want in an Aqueer poison team, we want Arita to exalt. And then in a Chaos one, we want Nymphea to exalt and Lily to exalt. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to like load up the Seiya's 3 cost or her rouse so that everybody has Dissolution Inked. We get everybody up to an exalt like turn 2 or 3, and then we like unload. That's the game plan with this group. All right, and I think that's it for all of the teams. I hope you kind of were inspired today, and that helps you get a little bit more understanding of her kit.